When I walked in, he threw the bowl of pasta in the sink to hide it. Have you ever wondered why some of your relationships feel draining while others feel inspiring and even energizing? Well, the secret might actually lie in boundaries. Think of boundaries as your personal rulebook for relationships. They're the invisible lines that define what makes you comfortable and what doesn't. Just like a fence around your home protects your space and privacy, boundaries are meant to protect your emotional and mental well-being. When you set healthy boundaries, you're not just taking care of yourself, you're also teaching people how to have a good relationship with you. And the result of that is usually better connections that make you feel more energized instead of drained, where everyone feels respected and understood. I'm tired of my husband wasting our money by overspending. My husband grew up poor, and now as a working adult, he loves to spend money. However, we don't earn enough to comfortably spend the amount of money that he wants to. I've talked to him about it many times, and nothing ever changes. I've told him so many times, all I want is savings, so that when an unexpected expense comes up, we don't have to stress about how to pay it. This couple has fundamentally different approaches to money. The wife wants financial security through a savings account to handle unexpected expenses, while the husband is much more focused on the now with no interest in saving. Despite multiple discussions, they still don't have a savings account, showing that the husband continues his spending habits without regarding his wife's feelings. There are two major boundaries being crossed here. Firstly is the communication boundary, which focuses specifically on how people interact and exchange information with you. The wife has repeatedly expressed her concerns about saving money. The husband either avoids the conversation or ignores her concerns. This pattern of having to repeat herself and just being ignored is the communication boundary being crossed. And when that happens, what that usually leads to is feeling unheard, disrespected, and like her feelings don't matter. Secondly is the financial boundary. Financial boundaries are there to protect our financial well-being, and obviously different people have different risk tolerances, and it becomes much more complicated in marriage when finances merge and you have to make it work. In this case, the wife does prefer financial security and savings for emergencies, and the husband is willing to take much more risk with spending. Her need for financial security is being ignored. In a healthy relationship, you need compromise. You can't make one-sided decisions. The husband has two choices. He could continue ignoring the issue, but that will lead to more conflict and bigger conflicts. Secondly, he could engage in genuine discussion to find a middle ground through possibly opening a savings account, offering alternative solutions, or finding a compromise that works for both. Remember that avoiding financial conflicts doesn't make them disappear, it only makes them worse. AITA for telling my husband his parents are rude for showing up unannounced. Long story short, I get out of work at 5:30 p.m. I work from home. I think in this new age, people think that working from home means you're available at all times because you're home. Several times, my in-laws have showed up unannounced during my workday, as well as immediately upon me getting out of work with no notice. So this person has to work from home until 5:30 p.m. However, her in-laws are visiting before 5:30 p.m., which is causing problems for her because she can't work properly. And despite having a regular schedule, these unannounced visits still continue. This is a classic case of the home workspace not being viewed as real work. And there are two major boundaries being crossed here. Firstly is the professional boundary. This person has established work hours. Their in-laws drop unannounced during work hours, and this creates a disruption to workflow, added stress, difficulty maintaining professionalism, and impact on the job performance. Secondly is the home office boundary. So working from home does require clear separation between work time and family time. It requires a professional space versus living space. In this current situation, the in-laws do treat the home office as just another room. The work hours aren't being respected. The professional space isn't recognized. Working from home does require clear boundaries. A person does have to set strict office hours where visits aren't allowed, and require advance notice for any sort of visits. And remember, just because someone is working from home doesn't mean they're available for social visits. A home office does deserve the same respect as a traditional workplace. Tired of my gross boyfriend. I just walked into the kitchen to ask him something while he is cooking. He made himself some pasta to eat while he cooks. Neither of us have eaten today, And no, he didn't offer me any. When I walked in, he threw the bowl of pasta in the sink to hide it, and went to the chopping board and started chopping some vegetables. He had bits of food around his mouth and his beard and was falling onto the chopping board. I was obviously taken aback and disgusted. I told him it fell from his mouth and he pushed it off the board with the knife. Part of it stuck to the knife and he kept chopping. I feel so sick. He is by far the most disgusting person I have ever met. I'm so tired of this. I can't even kiss him without feeling sick because he gets pools of saliva at the corners of his mouth and food around his mouth, even hours after eating. Over 10 years of trying to teach him personal hygiene and general consideration of others. Before we get into the boundaries issue here, let's address how this situation has been going on for 10 years. When you think about a problem that has been repeatedly addressed with no change, what does it remind you of? It reminds me of a broken record. The same issues playing over and over and over again. At this point, it's no longer just a boundary violation. It's become an established pattern of behavior. Patterns are extremely difficult to break because they become ingrained in our daily lives and relationships. We've discussed how to address boundary violations when they first occur. We need to talk about what to do when boundaries are consistently disregarded, despite years of communication about them. When you've communicated your boundaries clearly and repeatedly over years, and the other person doesn't show any signs of change or even acknowledgement of the problem, you need to ask yourself some hard questions. First, are you willing to accept that this behavior might never change? Because at this point, they've shown you exactly who they are and what they're willing or unwilling to do. Second, what's keeping you in this situation? Often we stay because we remember how things used to be, or because we keep hoping the person will finally understand and change. But here's the reality check. After 10 years of the same behavior, hope isn't a strategy anymore. You have 3 choices. Accept the behavior and find ways to live with it. Change your own behavior and responses to protect your well-being, or remove yourself from the situation. There's no magic 4th option where suddenly, after a decade, they'll have an epiphany and transform overnight. Think about it this way. If someone has been stepping on your foot for 10 years and you've told them countless times that it hurts, at what point do you accept that they either can't or won't stop? At what point do you decide to move your foot? Sometimes, protecting your boundaries means making the difficult decisions to walk away, because the alternative is that accepting that your boundaries will continue to be violated indefinitely. Remember that one of the key requirements to have happy, healthy relationships is to remain authentic to both yourself and the other person. There's no point in putting yourself in uncomfortable situations that ultimately make you unhappy and are very mentally exhausting. It's still possible to have amazing relationships that don't continuously require sacrifice. Relationships with lack of boundaries never end well, and the only thing you get out of it is wasted time. Take a moment to reflect on your relationships and think about what boundaries you have either been trying to implement or still need to. There have been multiple studies that have shown people actually respect and like you more when you're firm with your boundaries, not the other way around. Don't feel bad because you think you may come off as difficult or uptight by vocalizing your needs. And another word of advice, try to set these boundaries as early as possible because relationship dynamics are much more difficult to change later on.